just a thought. It's my opinion. It's just a thought. It's just a thought. Get out your feelings. It's just a thought. It's just a thought. It's my opinion. It's just a thought. It's just a thought. Get out your feelings.
What's going on, family? It's your girl, Sharí Nycole, with another episode of Just a Thought with Sharí Nycole. And let me tell y'all something. I feel like this one is gonna be a blockbuster hit. Season 4 is already on fire, but my next guest actually traveled into Atlanta to sit with me. I am so honored. I think he is the first guest so far to ever do that.
Wow.
So I feel very honored. His name is Dave Anderson. He's a distinguished, I love the fact that he's described as a distinguished business coach, motivational speaker, and a best-selling author. And through his company, The Business Bully LLC, he's contributed significantly to the growth and success of hundreds of small and mid-sized businesses. Hopefully he can help me and you today. Moreover, Dave Anderson extends his influence through Business Bully TV, a lifestyle and entertainment channel focused on entrepreneurship. He's also a no-holds-barred individual and with some very, very strong viewpoints that I tend to align with on a regular basis. So this is going to be a fun one. Without further ado, Dave Anderson, the legend, the icon, the serial entrepreneur, and so much more. Welcome to Just a Thought with Sharí Nycole.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
It is my pleasure. And I saw a clip of you on social media. This was several months ago.
Uh-oh.
And you were talking about, it was like somebody was talking to you about relationships, dating, and you were saying, you were talking about reality stars or something, but your approach was so straight away, unapologetic, firm but fair.
Yep.
And I said, I like this guy. He just says what needs to be said.
Yes, ma'am.
And little did I know, I followed you, you followed back, and here we are.
Yes.
I appreciate you being here, and I want to ask you. I made a little fun about it earlier, but
Sure.
Distinguished is an interesting word. Obviously, I respect what you've been able to do as an entrepreneur, but
Thank
I
you.
do want to kind of get more of an understanding of like the outspoken fire in the nature that you have. Can you pinpoint where that came from or where that comes from?
Well, genetically, I have a father, God rest his soul, who famously cursed out Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan at one point. So that's in me.
Yeah.
The other part of that is I am the son of a mother who spent her childhood years being timid and also raising her siblings. And I remember having a conversation with my youngest aunt. And I said, Aunt Gigi, why did my mom always push me this way? Why does she always make me go out front? Why does she always make me audition for this and go here and do that and speak up? And she said, well, your mother was shy. I said, Mom? She was like, no, what you're seeing is decades upon decades of understanding, and she
Wow.
would be damned if her boys were going to be timid. So there's that. The other part of that is I have gotten myself to a point where I'm not saying I can't be canceled, because I'm sure you can cancel anybody these days. It's not that hard. It's modern McCarthyism. But you can't fire me from a company I own, right? I'm not a publicly traded corporation. I can say what I need to say. And I'm sorry, I live in America. We have a constitution that says I have a First Amendment right to my freedom of speech.
Absolutely.
You don't have to like it. As long as I'm not saying I want to kill the president or yelling fire in a crowded theater, it is my prerogative, like I'm Bobby Flippin' Brown, to say exactly how I feel about whatever, and it's your prerogative to like it or not.
Yeah. At any point in your entrepreneurial journey in particular, did you weigh the cost of the possibility of being canceled?
No. Let me explain something to you. When I was expeditiously uninvited from the executive producer position of the nationally syndicated Ricky Smiley Morning Show, and I wound up washing my lower extremities in a gas station sink, I realized that I was never going to be that low again. And if I can survive that, I can survive the fact that you don't like my opinion, because I'm never going to be there. My wife will never experience that. My children will never experience that.
Yeah.
And so, no, why should, God called me here for a reason, and I'm still here. So obviously that reason has not been fulfilled yet completely. So why am I going to take time to consider how you feel about what I'm saying or what you're going to try and take from me? I'm an actual believer. You know, you got people, oh, Lord, I love the Lord. I love Jeebus so much. Oh, Lord, I love Jeebus. Thank you, Jeebus. I don't want to do it. Hello, shut it about Osama bin Laden coming in a Honda. And the truth of the matter is, the most faithless people on the planet tend to be Christians. Because you follow a man that walked by faith and not by sight, healed palsied children, created miracles, fed 5,000 after spitting bars for hours.
Yeah.
And yet and still, you worried about whether or not you're going to make it to your next payday. So what God actually has for me is for me, and I walk that. I don't just say it because it's cute on my Instagram feed. So yeah, no, I'm never worried about that. If you're going to do what you're going to do, that's fine. I'm still going to write books. I'm still going to speak. Somebody will want that, and Jesus said, "Even my sheep will hear my voice."
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
I'm gonna stick with the dismissal from the Ricky Smiley Show for just a moment, because I'm interested in knowing for you how you go from trauma to a place of at least, I'm not here to say what forgiveness has been like for you, but how do you go from something that traumatic to a place where you can talk about it openly, to a place where, even if it's just reconciling within your own self, your own heart, where you're like, okay, it happened, moving on.
Right. For some people, that's their pinnacle. Being a producer of a nationally syndicated show, that was their pinnacle. I did that with Clue before I ever got with Ricky.
Yeah.
Right? I worked with Wendy when I was 20 years old. So it was a job. It was a job I took ownership of. It was a job I absolutely loved, but it was just that, a job. And unlike most people in humanity, and that doesn't mean I think I'm better than people, I just have a different level of understanding on certain things. I am not what I do. Because when people ask you, what do you do? What they're trying to decide is how much they're willing to respect you based upon what power they feel you yield over their lives, or how impressive you are to talk about at their dinner parties. So a job is not that. So let's deal with the forgiveness part. Me walking around angry, and keep in mind, I was angry for a very long time because truthfully, and I challenge anybody at Radio 1 to tell me exactly what I did, and no one has yet to tell me that, other than we're going in a different direction. Even the person who fired me, Hurricane Dave, told me to my face, well, on the phone, but later to my face, yeah, you didn't do anything. You did your job. You were stellar. Look at what we've done. Look at the growth. So you know where this is coming from. So when you take your power and use it and wield it as a weapon for personal reasons, because you don't like the fact that I tried to save your job, because he does not know that they were going to replace Ricky Smiley with Cedric the Entertainer or D.L. Hughley or Rudy Rush, who famously hosted Showtime at the Apollo.
Yeah.
And they were like, either get him in line, or when Obama gets inaugurated, it's going to be Rudy Rush or Ced or DL. And I, at that point, had the dichotomy of dealing with, I need to save my friend, and I also need to save this show. Because you can put anybody else in here, it's not going to be the same thing. 2.5 Men wasn't as good with Ashton Kutcher as it was with Charlie Sheen.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't give a damn about the headaches that Charlie Sheen caused, right? And so for me to have someone who I loved, someone who I looked out for, someone whose headaches I handled while he could go off and do whatever he wanted to do, that's the job of a producer. You know that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But to do that to me without even facing me, because the entire time I was separated, like I had to be in another studio, all kinds of stuff. Same thing Claudia Jordan said. It's the same play. So one thing Ricky did teach me is, if something keeps happening, who's the common denominator?
Yeah.
If there have been 20 producers, who's the common denominator? If there have been 17 female co-hosts, who's the common denominator? If you have people who have similar stories who have never met, who's the common denominator? So you also have to understand, and this is what I tell people. Number one, if he had not done that, because this is what God does, if he had not done that, I would still be like a lot of my quote unquote peers in the industry, you know, either putting out an air check or trying to find another gig or hanging on to my gig or
for sure.
So many of individuals in the media die of heart attacks because they're holding all of this stuff in. I don't have to do that. And then look at how many people would have gotten robbed of the experience of starting, growing, scaling their businesses. How many books would have died in me because I never would have had the gumption to write them, right? I might not have ever gotten with my wife. There would have been it would have been a different, I would have been in an alternative universe that I wasn't meant to be in. So if it was the end for me, then that's one thing. But obviously I've done so much since then. We're talking 15 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, so I can't hold on to poison in my system and expect Ricky Smiley to die.
Yeah.
I have to realize that that's what he felt he needed to do for whatever reason that he can't seem to justify, and he believes that he's never, quote, done anything wrong to anybody. And I believe you're entitled to your own opinion.
Right.
You're just not entitled to your own facts. But I've got a lot more in the tank. I have done phenomenal things over the past decade and a half. And it's just one chapter in a really long story of tragedy, triumph, rags, riches, riches.
Yeah. With this chapter in mind, how do you view friendship? And also keeping in mind, you're an entrepreneur. You're an industry, have been an industry executive. You have all these incredible things going for you. You've seen the radio and entertainment industry in ways that would probably freak out most human beings.
Sure.
How do you view and or approach friendship at this point in your life with all that in mind?
Wow. I think people buy into this narrative or the old cliche, you can't choose your family. I vehemently disagree. I choose my family every single day. You can't choose your genetic relatives.
Yeah.
DNA does not make you family, right? I'm very selective as to who I give that title to because it's a title. It's a distinction. It's an honor to be my friend. I have associates. I have collaborators. I have coworkers. I have staff. I have people who I consider friends. And that's a heavy, heavy word.
Yeah.
You know, because that means that I'm going to show up for you when you can't show up for yourself. I'm going to keep you accountable whether you like it or not. I'm going to be there in a way that I would not be there for, let's say, I don't know, 7.8 billion people on the face of the planet, but I'm going to show up like that for you. That's heavy when you think about it. It is a distinction that you choose that requires an emotional commitment, but does not have anything to do with the government, does not have anything to do with paperwork.
Absolutely.
It is a conscious daily choice to be a friend. And so I don't throw that word around ever again. And I learned that from that particular chapter in my life.
As Black folk, let's just stick with us for a moment.
Sure.
What levels of understanding are we just not grasping when it comes to connecting, to galvanizing, that you really think would move the needle in a way that would get us to a better place in space, especially in this current climate we're in?
Okay, so when it comes to connecting, when it comes to galvanizing, when it comes to growth and moving the ball forward for Black folk, what we need to do is be like Lady Justice and put blinders on and just listen to what has been said and only research what has been done. Don't talk to me about how you feel about a person. Show me their record, right? Whitney Houston famously told Wendy Williams, you know, crack is cheap. Show me the receipts.
Show me the receipts because crack is whack.
It's whack. It's cheap, Wendy. How dare you? But the truth of the matter is, we don't look at the receipts. We look at what the media tells us to feel about any given thing. I guarantee you, every February, we're going to talk about Trayvon and we won't talk about him again. Right? Every August, we'll talk about Mike Brown and we won't talk about him again. Every 4 years, we'll talk about how this is just the most critical time because they're going to take away our voting rights and Black people don't have IDs. You and I have never been in the same room. How many Black people do you know that don't have an identification?
That aren't on drugs. None.
Thank you.
And look, there's people on drugs that I know that have, but I'm just saying there are people that I know are in a bad way that they might not have those kinds of concepts, but most of the people, yes, I can't recall someone else in my life, a Black person not having an ID.
And you also have to understand, for me, my mother's father, my grandfather, James Lewis, he got in the wrong fight with the right son of a Klansman. And he had to run through the night, and he found himself at a naval recruitment station where he lied about his age and enlisted in the Navy, right? Then he took tailoring classes to expand on what he was doing in the Navy as a tailor. And young woman comes up to him, says, "Hey, listen, I got a friend and she really digs you." And he was like, "Well, that's cool, but what you doing?" And 8 months later, they were married. And then 9 months out of that, they popped out my Uncle Jimmy. 10 months after that, they popped out my mama, and so on and so forth, 6, 7 kids down, right? My grandfather had a 6th grade education, but he became an executive in the Bud Company. Like, he was phenomenal in common sense. And he used to tell me, he'd say, "David, you know, if they want to hide something from a black person, they're going to put it in a book. Don't let them hide nothing from you. All you have to do is look at somebody's record."
Yeah.
Right? Presidents do not write laws. They sign things into law, but laws happen with Congress and Senate because there's bills. I mean, Schoolhouse Rock is your friend. Go watch it.
I love Schoolhouse Rock.
Me too. But my whole thing is we get caught up on how we feel about somebody because we take our elected officials and we regulate them to being homecoming king and queen. And that's not it. I don't care how cute you are. I don't care how much you talk to Cardi B. I don't care how much you do the nay-nay. What do you have tangibly for me?
That's true. That's true. That's
what you got for me? Because my whole thing is hold your politicians to the same standards that most sisters hold black men to when it comes to going out on a date. What you gonna do for me? Where you taking me? I don't want to go there. I'm better than the Cheesecake Factory. I'm better than you telling me you have hot sauce in your bag, Hill. I'm better than you telling me, Donald, look at my African Americans over there. You know, because I got smoke for all parties because left wing, right wing, same bird. I don't care how I feel about you. I care about what you're going to do for me.
Absolutely.
And not in a patronizing way, in a way that is going to give me some tangibles. And until we get there, and until we realize there is a way to go get reparations, we're never going to get there. And then, finally, black people have a hard time following other black people because they don't want anybody to shine greater than them.
Crabs in a barrel. Deep sigh.
So until you realize that it doesn't matter who's driving the bus, it only matters who's on the bus. And if the bus is going in a direction that you want to go in, get your ass on the bus and hold on tight. But we can't do that because we all have to have the credit. We all got to shine.
Yeah.
We all got to floss. We all got to be the guy or the girl or the whatever you're identifying with these days.
Speaking of leadership, though, what can that model look like for us in the black community when you speak about us being able to or having an understanding around following? What, because I'm under the understanding, just for me, of it may not be a Martin, it may not be a Malcolm. We're past that time. So what does leadership, or can it look like with regards to the black community?
Okay, so this is a many splendored thing.
I love that disclaimer.
I think that leadership needs to start in the home.
Oh, I'm about to just walk out right now. You just said a mouthful.
We can't talk about what black people need to do collectively until we collectively collect our asses in our own homes. Meaning that I'm not worried about anything outside of what happens in my homestead until my homestead is secure.
Yeah.
Right? We neglect certain things. I never understood the hypocrisy of black people in a real sense, and here's what I mean. Most black people would say, and I haven't interviewed every black person, so please, with the not all police, I'm not here for it.
Right.
Just generally, we're speaking generally. Like, rated G means that it's probably good for kids, but some of you might take offense to a Disney movie for whatever the reason. But generally speaking, as a rule, black people will say that they don't want the government in their business. They don't want the government telling them what to do. They don't want the government doing this, that, and the third, but you let the government educate your child.
That's true.
Tell me how that makes sense. You will sacrifice absolutely everything to get your kid a PS5, but you won't sacrifice absolutely everything to get them a homeschool teacher if you can't do it yourself? Help me understand that. You're upset because a government official who does not share the same comb or cultural frame of reference that you do is pulling black history out of the schools. Why are you letting your oppressor, if you believe you're oppressed, educate you on your culture? Tell me how that makes sense. To double down on that, Sharí Nycole, I have a question for you. Name me the Vietnamese American icon you learned about in school. Name me
Bruce Lee. No,
Bruce Lee is not.
I'm joking. I have nothing for you.
The Punjab Indian American icon you learned about in school.
No.
Okay.
No.
Here's one. This Layup. Give me the Jewish American icon you learned about in school. Okay. So why are black people the only ones that need to have somebody else teach them about them? Because last I checked, I knew who all of my black heroes were from a very young age. Now, granted, you know, I had one set of grandparents that was born in the 1890s and the early 1900s, another set of grandparents that were born in the 1920s. You know, my mother was born in the 40s, my father was born in the 30s. So I get that I'm a young relic in the way that people taught. But my whole thing is, when did we leave everything up to everybody except us? Right? My grandmother used to get mad at my mother and my aunts and uncles because of integration. And I said, Mimar.
I was going to ask you, do you think integration is partly, if not most of the reason that this is now an issue? Integration
isn't the problem.
Okay.
The problem is the desire and the addiction and the draw and the sex appeal of white adjacency. You want to be next to the white man because that makes you feel important. Just like you would wear Mass's scraps and put them on so that you can read his redacted Bible and you called it your Sunday best. Until such time as you realize that what you really want is fabricated self-hate in the form of getting them to tell you you're good, nice little pat on the head, good little Negro, then you're always going to be in that position. So my grandmother would say that because your mother was an emergency, she is the only one of my children, my grandmother had 6-7 kids, who was not born in a black hospital to black doctors. She said, we knew our butcher, we knew our accountant, we knew our lawyers, we knew everybody. And she said, I never understood why they wanted to go down to Woolworth and eat food that isn't seasoned. My grandmother was that work. So I'm trying to understand, what did you get out of it? Where's the black hotels? Give me the black hotel chain. Give me the black hospital network. Give me the black-owned bank that isn't fronted by a rap icon that really has white people running it. Show me where the quote-unquote black excellence, which is the dumbest, double negative I've ever heard in my life, because all excellence is black. Everything else is an offshoot. If you think I'm lying, look at rock and roll, look at the Beatles, look at the invention of the Super Soaker. We make water guns better. We did. So we are excellence and everybody else is copying us. We are the most copied individual on the planet, but we do not know how to monetize everything because we want to focus on performance and not production. And until such time as we understand that the real money is behind the performer, we're going to lose it. To put that simply, Chris Rock famously said, Shaquille O'Neal is rich. The guy who writes Shaquille O'Neal's checks is wealthy.
Yeah.
So until we are ready to, 1, take our homes back, 2, take our culture back, 3, monetize our culture, and 4, be accountable for what it means to be excellent and demand what we want from it, then I don't want to hear your complaining. And that goes for Taraji too.
All right, so Dave, you did it, not me. You went here, not me.
Okay.
You brought up Taraji.
I did.
And a lot of people would argue, all that sounds great. But the reality is, look at the Tulsa Massacre. Look at when black people have tried to successfully put together businesses, created their own, only for whites to come and destroy those things. We're dealing with systemic racism in a system that wants to ensure that we don't get to do the things that you just said we should be doing. Throw Taraji in the mix.
Sure.
What would you say to them, and what is your response even to her, really having the breakdown that she had about unequal pay?
Have you ever been a kid in the kitchen and spilled milk on the floor, or you messed up the Kool-Aid?
Mm-hmm.
You build again.
But I ain't never messed the Kool-Aid up. You pick something else. I don't mess the Kool-Aid up.
Yeah. I was a little sugar happy when I was a kid, especially when it comes to grape. I want my
the
grape
more
extra
sugar,
sweet.
the better.
All the sugar. It's amazing I was not diabetic when I was 561 pounds.
My God.
The thing of it is, when things happen, you have to understand where you live. At any given time, y'all could have followed Garvey and left the country, but you didn't. At any given time, all these passport bros and all, and you know this for a fact, there've been a bunch of reality shows way before the passport bros with black women going across the sea, across the world to go find love. There's 90 Day Fiance. There is hundreds of seasons of that. So you can get your passport to go get your coochie wet. You can get your passport to go get your ding dong wet, but you can't get a passport to move someplace that will respect you. What about all these repatriation programs in Ghana? The truth of the matter is you love being in America. You absolutely love it. So if you love it, you got to take everything that comes with it. I absolutely love my wife. That don't mean I like her all the time. I honor and revere my wife. That does not mean I like her all the time. And guess what? She don't like me all the time either. But when you love something, you fight for it. Even if it messes up, even if it doesn't do what you would do in the position that they were in when they could have done this or thought about doing this a different way. So you're trying to tell me because they came and knocked down your buildings, which isn't an uncommon thing, that it might as well just not do anything. So what you're telling me is you want to sit on your hands and be inactive and let Massa clean it up for you, because Massa also owns the means to clean it up, right? The other part of that is, let's talk about Taraji for a minute. Let's just talk about this entire industry. And I know what I'm about to say is not going to be received well. And quite frankly, I don't care. Just tell me when I'm telling lies. That goes for you too. Did she show up for Benjamin Button?
The people said that she did not.
But she was she in the movie?
She was in the movie.
She was the second lead or the supporting actress in the movie.
Absolutely.
Did anybody, as far as you know, and did she say at any given time that somebody put a gun to her head for that part?
No, she did not.
Okay.
She spoke about actually the renegotiations from the original offer that they gave her.
Sure. You don't get, and this is what black people need to understand. All people need to understand it, but I'm only concerned with my people first. Black people need to understand you do not get what you are worth. Nobody will ever pay you what you're worth except for you. You get what you choose to negotiate. And if you don't know how to negotiate, you find somebody who does. And if the person who isn't doing a good job negotiating for you on your behalf, you fire them and you get somebody else. But you can't tell me after all of these movies, 3 decades in Hollywood, you did not understand that. Or was it what I tell people all the time? And keep in mind, I'm an agent for radio personalities. I manage WWE Hall of Famer Mark Henry. I have people who do things at the very highest level of this business. And at the end of the day, my power, whether I'm representing them or myself, is my ability and my willingness to walk away from the table with my dignity over $1. Vivica Fox famously said, well, that's not been my experience. And do you want to know why that's not Auntie Viv's experience? Because Viv learned very early on that the best thing you can do is not just be the cute little performer. You might want to start writing. You might want to start producing. You might want to start pitching your own ideas and then putting your money where your mouth is. 30 years ago, everybody laughed at a guy named Brian Hooks because all of his movies went straight to the video store. Now everybody does that. Netflix makes trillions of dollars across the world doing just that. And you're trying to tell me that you don't have a choice? No, you want the shine. You want that over your dignity and your respect. And I get it. We all got to eat. Everybody got to do what they got to do.
That's the other argument.
Yeah, that's
people
fine.
have bills to pay. They have teams to pay.
Sure. And so do I. And guess what? That doesn't mean that I'm not going to do everything I possibly can to make sure I sleep well at night. You have to start making some hard decisions. And my whole thing is this. If you're the one for it, you're going to get it. And here's the funny thing. You know how many times I've been in this building? Several. I can't count that high. You know how many times I was told, oh, you're just going to come back. You'll be back. You can't stay away from radio. When I retired at 34 and a half, I've rejected 28 deals. 3 came from this place. The only time I come in here is to sit down with somebody like you, because I decided to go a different way. Moses would have been real content being second in line to Pharaoh for Egypt. And correct me on my biblical studies, I don't really care, but you get my point. He was a prince of Egypt. He was next in line, right? Or did he go out in the wilderness, do God's will, and deliver his people? Some of us are out here trying to deliver our people, and some of us are talking about manna from heaven, and you're taking an 11-day journey and turning it into a 4-year sojourn because you won't get in line and listen, and you won't pick up yourself and say, you know what? This check is not worth what comes with it. Because for the same thing that you would push back on me for, you told Monique she was crazy 5 years ago. And Monique wasn't crazy. And I disagreed with Monique to a certain extent because here's why. Netflix is not ours. It's theirs. They can do whatever they want to. Radio 1 was not mine. Ricky's show was not mine. You can do whatever you want to, and you have. That's fine. So, do I cry about the fact that you won't let me work on your plantation? Or do I start digging? Do I start planning where I am? Do I start getting those saplings together? Do I start building something out? Do I create a cottage industry of my own and then I build quietly, consistently, over time until I can get myself to a point where I don't need you? Now I come in here and I'm a guest. So basically the prodigal son returned and he came back with a bag, 21 best-selling books, and a whole lot of people who look like him who now can say they retired their wife, retired their husbands, living in their truth, living in their dreams. Or I can sit around and wait for somebody else to tell me about how unfair it is. You sound like you had an agent who absolutely sucked and you need to own that. And if you didn't have an agent, then your negotiating skills could use a refresh.
I get the ownership piece of this.
Mm-hmm.
Would you acknowledge the fact that there are, there's numbers to prove it, disparities when it comes to black women in particular, what we make on the dollar versus white women versus white males, because that's a real thing. So then how do you walk that tightrope between the realities of what the system is doing and also what you say, hey, there's a level of sacrifice involved if you really want to get to certain places that you say you want to go to, that you're being denied in some way. Like, how do you walk that rope? Because this is real. Like, we're making less money.
Yes.
We're working harder.
Yes.
We're making less.
Yes.
So where's the fine line there?
Let me tell you something that I don't know if anybody's ever told you to your face. So, sister, I'm going to tell you something that
I'm nervous. Oh, God.
You might not want to hear, but you need to hear.
Okay.
First, you have swimming in your genetics what is called the mitochondrial Eve gene, which means every single human being that could be created, whether it is a Jew, a Vietnamese person, an Indian person, all come from your womb. You are the mother of the universe. Point blank and period. It is the main crux of my argument, right? With that, you can do anything, right? Last I checked, there was a Divine Nine, and out of that Divine Nine, there's quite a few sororities. Are there not?
Mine included. Zeta Phi Beta.
Yes.
Sorority Incorporated.
Yes, indeed. Listen, you do Zeta as well. But I'm going to tell you something. When it comes to sticking up for each other, y'all won't walk away from the table. And yes, there are pay disparities, but let's talk about that statistic in a real sense. Do you know who Asia Denson is?
I do not.
Asia Denson is a woman who is self-made. She is based out of Detroit. Okay. And for the past better part of 2 decades, has been saying, hey, black people, you might want to come to Detroit and buy up all this land here, right? You might want to buy up these distressed properties.
Yeah,
they even
a lot
featured
of them too.
Distressed properties in 8 Mile, and nobody paid attention, and that movie is 22 years old now. And you know what? Asia runs a construction business. She's a contractor, and she's a real estate developer. She is a black woman. Now, name me 5 other black women construction company owners, real estate developers, contractors.
Let me tell you something. My sister, she's a construction engineer, and I can tell you straight away, from an ownership standpoint, we're not seeing black women in that space.
Cool.
At all.
Let me keep going. How many people do you know? Do you know the average bridge painter makes about $127 an hour? How many sisters do you know are out here painting bridges? Cool. How many black female electrical engineers can you name right now?
Only one. She has her own firm. She's actually my soror, good friend, Kimberly Moore out of Chicago, KDM Engineering. Only one.
Only one.
And let me tell you, back to sacrifice. I watched her. I watched her quit a corporate job.
Yes.
I watched her lose her home.
Yes.
Slept on my couch, all those things. And we were like, are you sure? She had a whole studio in her house. She was working out studio engineering, lost everything. We're like, sis, what are you doing? She's like, I'm gonna have my own.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this anymore. And to see her running a multi-million-dollar company now and employing other people, I'm in awe. I always knew she could do it, but to your point, there is a level of sacrifice that we're all gonna have to cough up and pay at some point if we really want what we say we do.
So is the disparity just because of race, or could it also be that 1, we don't want to get into certain careers because 1, they're not sexy enough, and 2, they require a certain level of sacrifice when it comes to ownership? Now,
that's a viable point that you raise, and I can totally align with that for the most part.
Now, I'm not saying that if I am white and I own a white firm, that I'm not going to make sure that Topher and Liam and Becca ain't going to get looked out.
Right.
But I'm going to tell you a story I do not tell publicly. One of my best friends is a guy named David Banner. And I called Banner because I was real happy that day. And like, there's only a handful of friends.
Yeah. Back to that word.
That I share my good news with, because you can't tell everybody everything. And I called him because I just closed a deal in Missoula, Montana. Or was it Provo, Utah? It was one or the other.
Both very interesting cities I've never heard of.
Yeah. Missoula, Montana, if you're ever there, there's a place called the Notorious PIG, Best Ribs in America.
In America?
In America.
Okay.
Now, I have lived in Kansas City. I have lived in Memphis. I've lived in Nashville. I've lived in Austin. I have lived in Atlanta. Best ribs in America.
I'll take your word for it then.
So he was like, hey, bro, like, I'm happy you got that check. He was like, but if you had us, you wouldn't need them. And it was sobering, and it literally set me back on my heels, because it made me realize that we don't look towards each other first, right?
That's a great point. Absolutely.
We don't, because you know what we do? We do what I call the ONAT rule. ONAAT. The one Negro at a time rule, and I don't say Negro. And so that one Negro right now is Tyler. 20 years before that, it was Oprah, right? Some people would venture a guess to say that one Negro is Byron Allen, even though Byron Allen does stuff that's not sexy enough. The Weather Channel ain't sexy enough, right? But Byron Allen summoned everybody in Black Hollywood to one room for an awards, and they all came.
Yes, he did.
They all came.
Yes, he did.
That's real power.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing. Nate Parker, who I think could have been the next Denzel.
Absolutely.
Made the fatal mistake of turning Byron Allen down and giving A Birth of a Nation to Fox Searchlight. And then all of a sudden, a case that he beat when he was a child, basically, in his 20s, came rearing its ugly head, even though it had already been settled in a court of law.
Yeah.
Jason Mitchell got caught out in the shy because somebody said something. Tupac famously said, it's a lot of real G's doing time because a groupie bent the truth that told a lie. What I need us to understand is, if we are self-contained, then we can deal with our situations ourselves. We can regulate our situations ourselves. It don't matter how much money I have. I can't buy an inch of land in Chinatown because the Chinese Americans ain't selling.
Absolutely.
We got to start rallying ourselves around each other, and we don't do that. And until such time as we take over industries, the same way Tiger Woods took over golf, Nicholas still got the record, but we still talk about Tiger.
Absolutely.
Right? There was a point where black people in basketball was an anomaly, right? But we poo-poo things that aren't sexy enough or viewed by the culture, which we do not control, and people who look like this control it and tell us what is cool. You know, that's why Lenny Kravitz or Slash is looked at as a weirdo, but we created rock and roll.
Yeah.
People are dogging K. Michelle for doing country music.
I think it's dope.
Last I checked, even Ray Charles did country music and
Yes,
went
he
platinum
did.
off of it.
Yes, he did.
Because he loved the stories. Who tells better stories than black people? I'm going to need black people to start diversifying their interests and stop getting mad because Liam or Chuck or Biff decides to put Becky or Stacy or Susie May in a position of power for the cushy jobs. You're not going to get the top rung at the cushy jobs when the person who is hiring you does not look like you. And even if they're hiring you and they look like you, they don't own it. So miss me with the disparity talk until we're going to have the entire conversation. Because if I'm going to tell it, to quote Usher Raymond IV, I'm going to tell it all.
You know what I love about you? I often recite lyrics as well when I'm just talking in conversation. Yeah. I didn't know anybody else did that besides me and my friends.
You need to come to dinner with my family.
I love it. I have a good time. I want to dive into a topic before we hit the record button that I asked you. Is there one thing that's really on your spirit, on your heart that you want to talk about? And critical thinking came up.
Yeah.
And really, I think it ties into what you just talked about. And we look at cultural emblems, socioeconomic issues, social media, just as all by itself. And to me, how it's really gotten us off the track in a lot of respects, especially when it comes to us not being able to differentiate what's in front of us and also what's behind us. What's the problem? in the simplest of ways to ask the question, what's the problem? And then also, does it have a viable solution in this generation?
Sure. Of course it does. All problems have solutions. We just have to be willing to do what it takes to get there. The first part of that is, if somebody else is teaching you what to think, if somebody is telling you how to feel, if somebody is controlling you down to your anger, right? We got a problem. If you look at the numbers in 2012, the phrase on the internet, white supremacy, started ramping up everywhere. And I'm not one to talk about individual exceptionalism as much as I am willing to say that I got something in my magical bag of facts I want to show you.
Come on, magical bag of facts.
Yeah. You know what this is?
It's a computer.
No. This is what I call the Freedom Box. This is an ATM. This is a TV studio. This is the best set of Encyclopedia Britannica.
That's still a computer.
It's everything. Everybody has it, but most people don't know how to use it. Like your girlfriend's talking about a bad sexual experience. Just because you got one doesn't mean you know how to work it. So, what happens is we get on these social media things and we think that we're doing something because we are literally the engine that drives them. Right? And we do these cute little challenges and we do the little dances and we,
Have you done any of those?
When I was still in my depressive state, because I'm going to tell you the truth. When I was still in my depressive state, I did the cinnamon challenge.
Okay.
I did.
Okay.
That was stupid. I'm admit to it. It was stupid. I did it for my kid. My kid wanted to, Daddy, do the cinnamon. All right, I'm going to do the cinnamon challenge. No. But the thing of it is, I got a challenge for you. Find out who owns these things. Do that, right? Stop believing the narrative, because here's a narrative that everybody likes to run around with. And when I say everybody, I mean generally. Go back to 20 minutes into this interview. Ain't no money in the hood. Then explain to me why there's a Chinese laundromat. Explain to me why there's a poppy store or a corner store or a bodega. Explain to me why you got Koreans and Vietnamese people doing nails in the hood. Yeah. Explain to me why you got Chinese people making fried chicken. Explain to me why you got Indians making pizza. Explain to me why you have Ethiopians and Nigerians running Dunkin' Donuts. If there's no money in the hood, then why is everybody in there getting all the money? Yeah, then you also have to start looking at a thing called commercial redlining, which means that if I got the credit, but because this is an area where they don't want us to build, because God forbid that anybody who is profiting from your quote unquote oppression, or at least profiting from a financial standpoint of you staying exactly where I need you to stay, which is a better way of saying that. Yeah. Why in the world am I going to let you buy that corner store when I can give it to Mr. Yim, and Mr. Yim is going to make sure that his 5 cousins come over here and also own Yim's Chinese food, Yim's Cleaner, so on and so forth. So you have to understand that part of it. Now, if all you see, right, I saw this girl do a social experiment the other day on TikTok, and it was the best use of TikTok I'd seen in 2 years. She asked a bunch of black women, do you think men want a natural body or BBL? And every last one of them said BBL, BBL, BBL. She interviewed like 20 women. Then she went and interviewed 20 black men and asked them, be honest, BBL or natural body? You know what they all said?
Natural body.
You're damn right we did. But now y'all like this. No, some white man in a boardroom told you we like that, and y'all ran with it because you don't seem to realize that the majority of plastic surgeons do not look like me, but look more like Andy Cohen. Are we not ready to have that conversation? That's fine.
We can definitely have it.
So until such time as you realize that you are the product that is running those engines, that's problem number one. I want you to get behind things like fan base.
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah. Shout out to Isaac Hayes III.
Here's my problem with Isaac Hayes III.
Uh-oh.
And it's not a problem as much as it is a critique, and I feel like, he's my brother. I knew his dad.
Yeah.
His father was an amazing man. I have yet to have the pleasure of meeting him, but here's what I don't like about his approach. Everything he says is juxtaposed against Instagram. And he's on Instagram talking about how fan base is better, instead of showing people why fan base is better. There was a time in 2011 where everybody said T-Pain's career is over with. That for auto-tune, this, that, and the third. Then all of a sudden, through the speakers, you heard, it's 5 o'clock in the morning.
Amazing.
All it takes is for you to make a hit.
Yeah.
Make a hit and everything goes away. In 2001, when those piss tapes of R. Kelly dropped, I called a VP over at Jive. And I said, oh, y'all Negroes are done. It's a wrap. I'm like, he peed on people.
Yeah.
I don't know how old the girl was, but he peed. And the guy said, Taz, because that's what they call me, because David Anderson isn't a cool hip-hop radio name. Said, Taz, by the time this goes to trial, if this goes to trial, we're going to have y'all Negroes dancing and y'all ain't going to care. Step, step, side to side, round and round. And then R. Kelly kept playing in your face.
We were all dancing.
He called himself the Pied Piper. The Pied Piper took children after not getting paid. He dropped a Chocolate Factory album and shouted out Regina and George Daniels after smashing their daughter. And you said nothing because they know the truth. And the truth of the matter is, all you focus on is the superficial. All you focus on is the headlines. We have a thing on social media. I call it, I like McDonald's. And I'm not a McDonald's fan, obviously, not anymore. But if I say I like McDonald's, here's what happens in the comments. Oh, so what's wrong with Burger King? Right. What In-N-Out Burger do for you? You too good for Miss Winters? What's up with a Jamaican spot?
You don't like Culver's? How about Chick-fil-A?
Do you know how good the cheese curds is at Culver's? Have you had those extra creamy milkshakes? Like, me saying I don't like this does not mean that I'm endorsing the other guy.
Yeah.
It means that this is a specific set of problems about this. And my whole thing with fan base is focus more on making sure that the product is phenomenal and then go for influencers who actually are incentivized to promote fan base. Not just the rappers who have the numbers, because the rappers who have the numbers don't need you, Ike. They don't. The people who have voices, who are trying to move this culture forward, need a platform. And I can tell you how this goes. When I was, what do y'all call this term, which in and of itself is filled with self-hate, blackballed from this industry. I got up one day and I decided to create a blog talk show. While that was happening, I had a good friend named R.C. Williams hit me up and says, listen, I need you to take a piece of this company. A buddy of mine out of Italy is starting. And I said, oh, cool. What's it called? He said, it's called Spreaker. I said, cool, no problem. I, in 2 weeks, had the #1 show on Blog Talk. You want to know why?
Yes, I do. What am I not looking at in my computer? I mean, the free book, whatever you said this was.
The Freedom Box.
The Freedom Box. What am I missing in the Freedom Box?
Here's what I did. The one thing that people focus on and get us to focus on is money. I don't focus on money. I know Pablo Noriega, the real Noriega. He owe me 100 favors. So every time I helped a record rep get an artist that nobody wanted to talk to, every time I loaned somebody something in order for them to get over the hump, I was like, don't worry about it. I got you. And then one day, not now, but later, I'm going to call in that favor. Yeah. So I called every record rep I ever did a favor for and said, listen, I need Maxwell on my show. So my first week was Maxwell, Talib Kweli, Queen Latifah, and I think I had Mos Def on another day. So it's like, who's this guy? You fast forward a few years, you know what Spreaker turns around and buys? The company I had a little bit of ownership in? We bought Blog Talk. That's how you move. If you got to collaborate with folks, you collaborate so that you can take over. We don't do that. We collaborate so we can get on, so we can sign with, so we can say, I got signed. Yeah. So you got yourself a nice little loan. Congratulations, numbnuts. You're in debt. So you just signed yourself into slavery when you could have signed yourself into freedom. Charlie Mack, who famous for Will Smith and quite a few other people's careers that a lot of people don't like to give Charlie Mack credit for. I asked Charlie Mack to his face one time. I was like, yo, why did Meek Mill leave you and go to Maybach? He said, and I'm paraphrasing, so Charlie Mack don't hold me to this, but basically said, I guess he wanted to sign himself into a situation he couldn't get out of. So I took that to mean that maybe he signed himself into slavery because that's what a record deal is. When we start moving in a way where we control our media, we control our voices, and we start doing this, and this is the part black people don't want to do because everybody wants to have their freedom. There was a thing, my brother, my mother was married before she married my father. So she had a son from that marriage, right? My brother Aaron, God rest his soul. My brother's father was born to a teenage mother, right? Mom Perry is what we call her. Mom Perry went down south, had that baby. Some aunties and uncles raised that baby. And my grandmother, my brother's grandmother, who, you know how black people's family are, my grandmother didn't see that baby till that baby came of age. Because there would have been shame on our last name. We don't play for our last name. A lot of us play for our middle, right? I'm Dave Anderson, right? I don't have a lot of ties to my father's family because most of my uncles are dead. My father died in 2005, but I wanted my name to mean something again. So when people are like, damn, I can't afford Dave Anderson prices, that means something.
Yeah.
Like, I fight so that my daughters understand what the name means. It matters. We don't do that. We just focus on right now, real quick, hit a lick, run the play.
Yeah.
And that's why we don't have anything long term that we control. And so that's how you fix this. We start rejecting the people who do not matter. We focus in on us, and we shame the people who continue to cross that line. We make it real uncomfortable for the people to cross that line. And you know how I know that works? It worked with the Italians when the Italians weren't black. It worked for the Irish mob when the Irish mob wasn't black. It worked for Meyer Linsky when the Jewish mob wasn't white. Excuse me, wasn't white now, it wasn't black. So when the Italians and the Irish and the Jews were not considered white, they had to rely on each other, and they called it organized crime.
Yeah, they did.
Right? And that's why they call it the protection racket, because you're not coming in my neighborhood if you're not leaving nothing. Why do we have all these people in our neighborhoods, but we're not demanding that, Sharí Nycole needs a scholarship to play basketball? You know how much money Sharí Nycole's mama has dropped in this corner store, Mrs. Yim? Run that. These kids running around here, they don't have a good playground. You need to fix them basketball hoops. Run that. We let them ride roughshod in our communities, and we don't demand nothing from it. And then we talk about how other people tear our stuff down. What are we doing to build our stuff up? And until somebody can answer that question, I don't want to hear about your complaints. What you doing?
Okay, business coach, distinguished.
Yes, indeed.
I do want to ask you, especially considering the fact that entrepreneurship has become very sexy since the pandemic. Everybody wants to own their own business, or everybody owns their own business, or everybody wants to jump out here and just, walk the plank and see what happens.
Yeah.
For you as someone who understands the science behind all of this, what say you to where we're sitting right now when it comes to Black-owned businesses in particular, entrepreneurship? And what do you hope to see? I'm curious to know as well.
I hope to see a lot less look at my highlight reel on Instagram and a lot more foundational structure. Right?
What does that encompass? What does the foundational structure encompass?
Attorneys, accountants, paperwork. The unsexy part that you can't go and
I
put in
hate
your
it.
stories. You can't.
I hate it.
But y'all like to run, get some podcast equipment and talk about what you do. I got my LLC. And then you got these fools running around here. The word distinguished means something. It means separate, beyond, apart from.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a part of that mess. I'm not in scam culture, this, that, and the third. If somebody's got a complaint about me, it's usually two. Number one, I hold them to the standard that they set for themselves, because my standards are nuttier than hooker spit. Right? Like, I'm insane. I understand that. Right? So you might not like the fact that I'm telling you that your vocation requires a certain amount of work. Now, I do offer a service that's $30,000 a month if you want me to be a fractional CEO in your business. But you'd have to sit there and not do anything, because what you were doing is what got you to me in the first place. And unless you're willing to pay me $30,000 a month to sit there, be quiet, and take copious notes, that ain't gonna work for you. The other thing is, I need people to understand that Tina Turner said, we don't need another hero. We don't need to know the way home. All we want is life beyond Thunderdome. I ain't gotta fight you in order to beat you. I'm the best. Period. We can talk about everything that doesn't matter, or we can talk about what my clients are doing, right? We've got to start getting ourselves in a place where we are aligned and self-sufficient, not independent. Independence is too much of separation from each other. Self-sufficiency means I am great at this, right? Kobe never tried to play center because Shaq was there.
Facts.
Shaq wasn't trying to shoot from the perimeter all crazy with his tongue out. That's some Kobe stuff. We got to be okay with what our lane is. And our lane isn't everything. I know that's a real good, popular, and living color skit. You do everything, but no, that's not how any of this works, right? The other thing is, as entrepreneurs, what I hope is that we realize that this rock star entrepreneurship nonsense that they're feeding us is not the truth. I am the last person to get paid. My biggest expense is human capital. If you had told me that throughout my companies I would have 300 employees, I would say you're absolutely insane. But they got to get paid, right?
Yeah.
Things have to happen. And that's the part. And I told another show that I probably cry twice a month just from the frustration and the stress. Because everybody want to show you, I'm a CEO. How are you a CEO and you're a one-woman shop? See, because CEO actually means something. It's not just a cute phrase you put on a sweatshirt. It means Chief Executive Officer. You work for the board. If you work for the board, that means that there are other people who are helping and making the decisions, and you do the will of the board and the shareholders. Why are you calling yourself a CEO? You're a founder. You're a business owner. You're a startup. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being a sole proprietor, right? What's wrong is everybody's told you got to be there now. And so you'll fudge on this and you'll fudge on that. Most millionaires, including myself, 9 times out of 10 are living real average because you're a millionaire on paper, not necessarily at the bank. And if your money's sitting at the bank, you're doing it wrong, right? Get into trusts. Trusts are great. Trust protects you, but Negroes are fed that, oh, he's spoiled. He a trust fund baby, this, that, and the third. You should be so lucky. Also, Dr. Claude Anderson said you should be ashamed of yourself if your child has to go outside of your house or out of your neighborhood in order to go look for employment. There is something to be said for nepotism. You think nepotism don't work? I give you George W. Bush, Kim Kardashian, right?
The list goes on and on.
The list goes on and on. Don't play with me. I give you Deion Sanders.
Yes.
Stop playing. There's nothing wrong with taking care of your family. That should be your duty, your distinction, and your honor. But you want to show off for them. But the truth of the matter is, as soon as somebody comes along, see, social media practices hypergamy in a way that a black woman never could by herself. Meaning, as soon as somebody comes along that's hotter, slicker, faster, presents a different way, you buy into it. And you love that. Y'all bought into the image of Donald Trump when he was running The Apprentice. Those helicopters wasn't his.
Good Lord.
The helicopters wasn't his. Mark Burnett, who created Survivor, put all that around Trump because Trump already had the reputation.
Right.
He just needed the presentation. As a business coach, it is my job to take your talents and your gifts and your skills and maximize and monetize them so that people can finally see them, right? The reason that I speak in clips and in sound bites is because nobody's going to watch the whole hour, the whole 2 hours, or however long we go. So I need to be able to get this particular point in so that you can catch it because we already know your attention spans are shot. But I am not, full disclosure, I'm not organized. I'm not the organizer in my executive team. That's not my ministry.
It's not mine either, Dave.
I'm a visionary. I'm a visionary, and I'm okay with doing that because I'm not going Kanye on you when I say that, right? Walt Disney was a visionary. Do you know why Roy Disney had the biggest divorce settlement up until Bezos? Because he was the organizer. He was the one who said, you know what, we're going to drain the swampland outside of Orlando, right? We're going to build the lockers in the basement, right? Oh, Walt, you want to put a roller coaster inside of a mountain? You, and you. We're going to put the roller coaster, and then we're going to outfit a mountain around it, and we're going to put some real rocks around it. Boom. Magic Mountain, Space Mountain, oldest ride, longest line. Woo! Shout to Ric Flair. You got to start looking at who is the imagination person, who is the visionary person, who's the engineer, who's the money man. You know who else did that? Jesus Christ. And it worked out real well for him because every Sunday, $33 million comes from the black church alone in tithes and offerings. So maybe it's not that you're struggling. Maybe it's you're struggling with the fact that you don't always have to be the guy. You don't always have to be the girl. All you got to do is be the one on the bus, and we can all get there together.
Oh, Lord. Speaking of tithes and offerings, if I had I got to get your Cash App. I feel like I need to sow a seed on this word. Dave, now I got to come visit you when you're on your territory. I just feel like this is the beginning of a really dope professional relationship. You're just incredible on so many levels. I cannot stress enough how honored I am to be able to have this exchange with you. It has been edifying. And that is something that we don't get very much of these days when it comes to conversations, especially between black men and black women, which we can talk about for hours as well.
Yeah.
But there's somebody listening right now that says, yo, I'm fired up.
Yeah.
I want to change not only my life, I want to change my business. And I think Dave is somebody who can help me do that. So I want to make sure people can connect with you, or maybe somebody's listening that say, hey, I've been looking for someone to partner with, somebody to support in their ventures, and this is the guy. How can people get connected with you?
Forgive me. Before I get to that, I want to get to this.
Yeah.
It's very important that people support this show because you give people the latitude to be themselves. The one reason I became a fan of you is because you'll let people go. You'll just get out the way and just be like, I love that because you get to hear people either talk themselves into a hole or talk circles around the current water cooler talk. It's very important that people support this show, subscribe to this show, download this show, because without independent Black media, we truly do not have a voice. So I thank you for the opportunity and the platform. Now,
thank you.
To your question, if somebody wants to collaborate, if they need a business coach, if they want to book me to speak, any of those things, you can always find me on social media at The Business Bully. And if it comes to anything that I want to give your audience, it's this. I literally just gave a 2-minute masterclass, because I know y'all ain't got time.
Yes, you did.
Where I talk about what happens when you start working with me and my team, so you can see it in real time. And you can get that at thebusinessbully.com/without paid ads, because you ain't got the budget. I get that. You ain't got money to be throwing the zucks and watching him wipe his butt with it. I understand.
Sick of it. Little $5 every few days adds up when you're boosting stuff and all types of stuff.
Oh my God, if you boost another post, I will choke you, and I'm not a violent man. Please do not boost any more posts, because what he does is it's a pimp move. He says, you could reach up to 55,000 people with just $5. Up to means that I could stop at 1.
That's true.
So that's the trick bag. So it's things like that. So thebusinessbully.com /without paid ads. But I'm always here. I'm always around. I don't claim to know everything. I just know that I'm here to help people, because I would have killed for this version of me to be with me in that truck and in that gas station when I was washing up homeless, when people wouldn't return my calls, and they had my number because I never changed it. So I'm standing up for my mom, who, you've been to salons, obviously, right? You ever go to a salon, they got the wine and cheese tray and the TVs on the
they got
wall,
a nice little setup.
Yeah. My mom was doing that in the 70s. She called it the girlfriend experience. Everybody does that now. If my mom had this version of me, my mom would be the millionaire she deserves to be. Now, she's living a great life, retired and whatnot, but I'm fighting for my people, because there's a lot of us who don't realize that once we get past the ugliness of hard work and sacrifice and not showing everything on Instagram, there's a beautiful place we can get to. And I just want to help us get there. I ain't perfect. I don't pretend to be. I don't know it all. I don't pretend I do. But what I do know is I'm unbought and unbossed. And I want most of us to get there. That way we're not depending on white daddy's approval or anybody signing us to put us on.
I'm with you, Mr. Ambassador. I'm also throwing that word in there. As we close this out, I can't help but ask, because Business Bully is your brand.
Yes, ma'am.
But you're everything but, in my opinion. There's a big-hearted alpha male sitting across from me whose heart for service is just immense. Yeah. How do you define the term bully?
Black, unapologetically living and loving yourself. I was on one of the many Facebook Black business groups, right? And there was a guy who came to me and said, I got this cookie. And he sent me the cookies. And I ain't gonna lie to you, them cookies, to this day, if I could get my hands on them cookies, I would have. And I said, okay, you wanna market, you wanna do this, you wanna scale this thing. Now, I know there's an opening in the market, because Famous Amos got jacked, just like George Clinton got jacked. We ain't got time to get into it, but here's the thing. I say to him, I said, look, you don't have any money. This is gonna cost me a bit to help get you where you need to be, but I will do it for 40% of your company. He said, you trying to take my company? I said, you have 100% of a grape. I'm offering you 60% of a watermelon. So he went in there, he went back to, Dave tried to rob me of my company and da ba da ba da ba. I'm like, you didn't have no money. And somebody decided to put a cape on that day and play superhero and said, Dave Anderson, you're a business bully. I said, no, bitch, I'm the business bully. Then I called Dana Blue, who's my attorney, who handles my trademarks and my copyrights. And I said, I'm the business bully from here on out. And she said, though, what? She like, you don't bully nobody. I was like, we running with it. Because apparently in the 17th trophy, Gen Z, I deserve everything because I breathe air and turn it into carbon monoxide, then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say that you're bullying me because I'm in my feelings and my traumas and my triggers. So to people who are used to getting the Heisman Trophy for just showing up or getting participation trophies for getting C averages, yeah, accountability comes across as bullying. Sorry, not sorry.
Well, I'm not sorry at all that we made this happen. Dave, let's
ma'am.
do this again. I don't know when you're coming back to ATL or when I'm going to be out your way, but this is not the last conversation that we will have. I appreciate you so much. Thank you very
I
much.
appreciate you. I just want you to keep going. Because what you're doing is phenomenal, and I love it.
It's just a thought. It's just a thought. Just my opinion. It's just a